because it didn't seem to do anything.
Oh, there we go.
Right. So, Chris, good morning.
Hey,
You have,
see ya.
and thank you to anyone else who's tuning in with us or who catches the replay on the first Creative Conversations. And I presume everybody's might have checked out our profiles or know something of us in our bio. I just wanted to correct something you were saying in the green room, Chris. I don't feel that I'm providing you an opportunity. I feel we are creating this opportunity together, because by saying yes, you've actually allowed me to experiment. As I put on my post, this is an experiment for me, my first live stream. And I just love talking about creativity and hearing other people talk about their process. So thank you so much for saying yes.
It's pleasure.
So I would like to sort of give a context for Creative Conversations and why Creative Conversations. And in talking to creatives, there's often several questions we ask ourselves, how do we balance 8 to 4 and creative expression and artistic pursuits? And particularly one thing that comes up again and again is imposter syndrome, And I was thinking about that a lot. And I think there's something about consolidating our growth inwardly when we commit to a process. And that process bridges a gap between wherever we perceive ourselves to be now and where we want to go. And I was particularly struck by your you talked about your lineage, your 8 to 4, the construction background that you have. And then you actually found art in that context. And that's really what galvanized me and motivated me to reach out to you. So can you maybe introduce yourself in that context?
Yeah, well, my name's Chris. I'm currently in my home studio here in Hampshire, which is only, it's about an hour from London. So I'm currently, this is where I'm working a lot of the time at the moment, but a lot of my projects and exhibitions are in London as well. So I'm sort of between the two places. But yeah, with the building, how did that come about? So 2016, I went back to do my master's in fine art, and I'd graduated from a BA in 2012. So from 2012 to 16, I was just working in jobs, mainly sort of retail jobs actually, and doing my art sort of on the side. And anyway, I got to a point where I saved up enough money and I was like, I don't want to do this work, the retail work, obviously. So I took the plunge and I handed my notice in and looked at all different art schools. I looked at a few in London, but I settled on Farnham UCA, which is where I did my BA. So for me, it was almost like a home from home. I knew all about the art school. Facilities amazing. Wood workshop, metal workshop, great studio space, bronze foundry. But then my parents obviously were like, what are you doing? You got no money now. But, my mum and my dad have been probably one of my biggest supporters. They've always been there for me and continually, support me. And basically what I decided to do, you could do your master's in 1 year, or you could do it part-time 2 years. And I just felt like if I did it in a year, you rush, you don't have time to properly think what you're doing. So yeah, I decided to do it over 2 years. I told mum and dad that, and dad has obviously got his building company. And that's when he said, well, why don't you work, combine it, with helping me out. And he goes, obviously being your dad, I'm not expecting you to be on there every day. Just come in when you can. So that's what I agreed to. And I remember the first day going on the building site, and you got cement, building sand, tarpaulins, scaffolding poles. It's all there. And I remember it took me like just a few minutes to think, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to just make art out of all this. Because what I didn't want to be is, an artist 1 minute, when I'm at art school, and a builder the next, so I, collided the two together, and that's how that all kicked off, really.
So what do you feel about this idea that bridging these gaps through our commitment to process is what consolidates a sense of identity as an artist? What do you think about this idea? Because you're bridging a lot of gaps there in your story, right? And in your lived story.
Yeah. I think for me, the interesting thing is, I think with the building aspect, so like my granddad, he had a building company, which then my dad's now taken on, which now I'm sort of involved in. So I quite like that idea of the history of the building aspects. And I suppose sort of the filling in with gaps. Yeah, I suppose that aspect of what I've just mentioned about that historic history, if you like, of the building trade, of what's in the family. And now as an artist, I'm still linking it to the building. But, I think the interesting thing that I've allowed myself as an artist is, instead of sort of programming how I do in the building world, because when you're on building jobs, you're thinking completely differently. The whole jobs are meticulously based. If you don't do a job properly, you're in trouble. You ain't going to get paid by the client. So, you've got to be in a different sort of mindset. Whereas the great thing as an artist, what I've allowed to do is take these methods and processes from the building site, which, as I said, I do use certain skills from the building site, but I allow myself as an artist to experiment further with them, to see what the possibilities are within these materials, within this way of functioning.
And this reminds me of something we spoke about when we first met, which was the intelligent hand. Talked about this idea of making meaning through the intelligent hand. Can you maybe share a bit about that?
I've actually written down a couple of things here. So, basically, for those of you that don't know, it's the book's called The Craftsman, and it's by Richard Sennett. And if you're into, process, I'd seriously recommend it. It's a brilliant book. And I've put down here, it heightened my inquiry into how my body works when I create art. And and chapter 5, titled "The Hand, the Intelligent Hand," how the hand became human, grip and touch, active touch, which is seen as having conscious intent. And then you've got localized touch, where fingers proactively probe and touch without conscious intent. So what I was really interested with there was with, grip and touch, and actually what I've brought.
Show and tell, let's see. Yeah, nice. I love it.
So this is a trowel that I would use when building on the building site. It's obviously quite large, as you can see, because a lot of the surfaces that we work on are large. If you lay in or building a foundation, they're often quite large in size. So the quantities of materials that you're working with, the cement or the building sand and the mixing process, you need a heavy sort of tool like this, or big tool. And when I work with it, I'm gripping it. I mean, I know you can't really see, but I'm gripping it really tight. So with that, I was thinking about the active touch, with having conscious intent. So I'm really conscious of how this is going to work and the grip. You know, I'm really holding on to it to work with the materials properly. This little tool is often something that I would work with in the studio because it's lightweight and I tend to work with it much more differently. Probably don't grip with it as much because I'm in a lot more free flowing process with the materials. So I just thought that would be quite an interesting thing to say.
You don't have to dig too far for the metaphors there at all. Yeah. The bridging, you know, I think that's.
And I remember when. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I remember when I first, read the book and came across that chapter, and I was like, and I think at the time, we were building a big wall or, laying a quite large patio. And I remember thinking, you're in a much more sort of robust, you've got to be strong, on the building site.
More muscular, right? Is it more muscular effort?
Yeah. I mean, the slabs that you're lifting are really heavy. Bags of cement now are, 25 kilo. So, they're not sort of light. So there where I put, it was an inquiry into how my body works when I create art. It's because, my body works differently on the building site, like as I say.
Yeah. So what happens to that muscular effort when you transition into the studio? You say you work differently. Yeah. What happens to that muscular effort? Is it that you feel that your body shifts, or is it that you let go? Or can you describe that process since you're observing the body?
Yeah, I think a bit of both, to be honest. I mean, I think because I'm working in a much more sort of experimental, free flowing. That's the word I like to use. Free flowing between, this intuitive kind of way of making, but as well as still being sort of fairly sort of strict, if you like, because I like to still, as I say, sort of work with methods from the building site, but I kind of like shift them up a little bit and kind of, experiment to see how far these methods can be taken. So, and I suppose mainly as well, the surface size is different. I suppose, in this home studio, well, actually the piece behind me is probably one of the biggest sort of pieces that I've sort of worked on. And that's up to sort of like 1 meter. But I'm actually, I've got
Do you miss the scale when you're working in the studio? Do you miss the scale of building? I know you change your touch and you're more free flowing, but I wonder if the scale of building, do you sort of feel confined or
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I've got a garden space where I work in as well.
Right. I did see a video. Everyone can look for that online. We can post them.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's on my website homepage, and you'll see I'm working with large sheets of tarpaulin. They're big sheets because they're used for covering, big building jobs. So I'm fortunate in that aspect where I can go larger. But again, it is a different way of working. I've yet to work with slabs or big scaffolding poles, maybe in the future. But yeah, at the moment, and I mean, what I've got here is this is a recent piece that I've just finished.
Yes.
So this is like 20 by 20 centimeters.
Can you let's talk now then about the materials, because you're not using artist materials from art shops. You're actually using building materials. Is that correct?
Yeah, definitely.
Let's talk about how those raw materials becoming a site of beauty in a different way from architecture, but on a canvas in a traditional artistic sense. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, a lot of my materials that I work with are building materials, obviously, so they're taken from building merchants or, your homeware hard store, so That's not to say that I haven't worked with sort of, you know, acrylics and things like that, but I'm much more interested in, you know, the building material and changing the function of how they work. And then essentially, yeah, you know, you sort of just said it about sort of adding this sense of beauty into
Yeah.
them. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, a lot of jobs that I've helped my dad on, I mean, you know, you step back and you go, blimey hell, you know, if that was in the Tate, it wouldn't look out of place, you know, because it's
Yes.
intricately put together. It's, you know, I mean, some of the clients would say, you know, can you do this formation, you know, with the bricks, for example. So there's a lot of
Right.
cutting and, you know, these intricate designs and patterns. So there is that element of beauty already, but it's how far, you know, that now as an artist that I can take it. So I start, you know, with this piece, for example. I mean, it's all made out of building materials. So this is all mortar, which is used as a binding material for laying bricks or, you know, laying slabs, pointing walls and pointing the slabs once you've laid them. But what I'm interested in as well is this is all the old broken bits of mortar that were taken from a job that I worked with my dad on.
Right.
One of the jobs that I quite like doing is pointing. It's a bit boring.
It's what?
It's a bit boring because you.
What is the job you described? Pointing?
Oh, pointing. Sorry. So that's where
Yes.
you're.
Right.
So say a brick wall.
So educators.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got the brick wall. You got the mortar joints in them. Now, obviously,
Yes.
over time, naturally, the mortar starts to wear. So what you then have to do is get a hammer and a chisel. I should have brought those actually as well. But
We can imagine it.
yeah, and then obviously you're hammering away at the joints, and a lot of the time, obviously, they're soft at this time because they're ready to come out. So you're knocking them out, and then you mix up new mortar to then fill in, you know, the gaps to basically, you know, give the wall that much more stability again. So
that
yeah,
process is called pointing,
pointing, yeah.
and it's boring. For you as a builder.
Yeah, I mean, it's because, say, for, you know, I work with, when we're on site, me and Dad, you know, it's 10-hour days, you know, that we do.
Gosh,
And obviously with the pointing, you know, you're there, you know,
yeah.
for 10 hours. Whereas if you're laying a patio, for example, 1 minute you're mixing, the next minute you're laying, and, you know, there's a little bit more variety going on, but it's less strenuous, which is quite nice.
So that piece is the removed mortar. That's what you're saying.
Exactly. So basically, when all the mortar sort of breaks off, obviously it naturally falls on, you know, a sheet of tarpaulin that Dad and I have laid down as a protector sheet, and then during like a break or whatever, I then get a dustpan, sweep it all up, put it into a bucket, and then bring it back to the studio, and then layer it. I mean, this is on canvas.
Right.
And I've purposely kept the straight edge of the canvas because I was quite interested in that idea, in as much as you know, when obviously working on the building site, everything has to be uniformed and straight, and, you know, a lot of measurements involved. So I quite like that idea of keeping this crisp edge. But
it's
then
like
yeah,
so you've created a tile almost, yeah?
Yeah, exactly. So then I bring the mortar back in the bucket, bind it back down with a bit of fresh mortar, not too much. It's just to bind it all back in again, and then I layer it on top. This side, as you can see, is a lot more flatter than this side, and the reason for that is another job that Dad and I would do is called rendering. And that's where so basically, if you've got like a real downgraded wall, you would then add a skim of fresh mortar over the top, and that's what's called rendering. So that basically strengthens the wall again, and adds kind of much more stability.
So in your authorial decision making, in your inner process, because you're authoring these ideas, why does it feel necessary for you to not just start from scratch with raw materials, but to bring materials from the website, recycling what is waste, essentially? Tell me
Absolutely.
a little bit about what goes on in you when you're making that decision. And do you remember the first moment you had that thought?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's always a skip on the building site. And I mean, for all the artists out there, that's listening to this talk, I mean, skips are brilliant. I don't think I've come across an artist that doesn't like a skip.
Treasure trove.
Well, yeah, exactly. Obviously, it's free as well. But I think for me, it was this idea of waste and that I suppose as the way I think of as an artist is that there was still possibilities to this material or surface
Oh,
that,
right.
that was in the skip. And
So it was not at the end of its life. You wanted
yeah,
to extend the life of the material. Wow.
absolutely. And I think also I do really like where this material and surface has already had a history. It's already had a life, and it's already kind of got tears in it or excess marks, or so it's already been ingrained with something. I think when you work with something fresh, I mean, it's like for artists that paint on bare canvases, when you've got a pristine white canvas there, or even if the canvas isn't treated with gesso or whatever, it's still like, oh geez, you've got to take that plunge to go into it because you're working with a complete bare surface. When the surface has already got something going on, it's like, yeah, great, And then, as you say, yeah, I'm interested in
Remember we spoke
life.
about, sorry, I think, yeah. Remember we mentioned Walter Benjamin and his description about the aura of things and the layers beneath buildings and architecture and so.
Yeah.
I also, one of the things that attracted me to you, I told you I'd seen Frank Auerbach's exhibition last year, the Courtauld, and of course he notoriously, when I researched him, did not give many interviews, although there's a good one on BBC. But in today's world, I think we really do need to get more digitally savvy as visual artists in particular, and wanted to give an opportunity to others to talk about their process. How do you feel? I know some people sort of say, let the work speak for itself, but how do you feel about this idea of, because one of the reasons that I approached you is I saw a comment that you wrote where you said you liked speaking about your work and its process.
Yeah, no, I do. I mean, I've done quite a few talks in my time. I mean, quite a few talks during COVID. Obviously, it was all online then. And then I've done some talks in exhibitions, in real life. And I enjoy it because I think because it is such a sort of personal. I mean, I know, all artists' work to them is personal. But I suppose because there's that autobiographical sort of edge to my work, I find it sort of really interesting to talk about, and also I find it helps me, because I think if I wasn't just, if I wasn't to sort of, I'm often in the studio writing about my work as well.
So that,
or as I say, doing the talks, I find really helpful because you're then expressing your own thoughts, and then obviously a lot of the time after the talks there's a Q&A, and someone might say something, you go, Jesus God, I never thought of that. You go, wow, and people are looking at your work differently. They hear it from the artist, and then they go, I've had someone challenge me as well. I've said something, and they go, no, I don't think I disagree, and I'm like, wow,
that's useful too, right?
Yeah, I'm like, that's
just
amazing.
The engagement. So you liked when I wrote the idea to you of concrete metaphors. That seemed to strike a chord in you.
Yeah.
So how would you illuminate that a bit more in relation to your work? And because I know we wanted to keep it short, I'll compound
Yeah.
the question with another. I'm curious about your compositions or the graphic lines and where that's coming from. What's your intention there?
Yeah. Well, I suppose looking at the piece behind me, that really originated from, I mean, the brown lines, if you like, that is the mortar. And yeah, again, it's talking about, when you work with mortar on the building site, it is a material that is designed to be worked meticulously, not in a messy way, because especially when you're jointing bricks, if you get mortar on bricks, that it stains them basically.
Yeah.
And obviously when you finish a job, you want it to look pristine. And my dad, I hope you don't mind me saying this, but he's a bit of a perfectionist. So I think all of that I was really trying to put into this piece. This whole idea of perfection, the way
precision,
the
a lot of
precision.
Right.
Exactly. But then with the colours, so if you look down at the corner there, the blue bit, that's where I've layered paint, scraped off. So that sort of side shows the much more experimental, where I'm a little bit more free flowing, like I say, and test, and the idea of playing with chance and seeing what happens, and it doesn't matter if maybe an accident is a good thing, sort of thing.
Right. Yes.
Whereas, as I say, on the building site, you can't do that. You're in trouble. So yeah, I think all of that piece was where that sort of originated, really.
Well, thanks so much for showing us the work behind the work, Chris, and making it more accessible. I am no art aficionado or art historian or anything. I'm a bit of a hobbyist portraitist, and I just love art and artists. I love creative work. I'm more of a writer.
Yeah.
But I think they all sync because, you're sort of elaborating an idea that I could put into words. When I say the words concrete metaphor, it lights up something for you in your visual work.
Yeah. Well, when you wrote about my work, Joanne, I know you just briefly said about it. It was amazing. So thank you very much. And I'm not the most articulate. So, when it's written so well, I mean, I've had a few people write about my work, and it's amazing because sometimes there's things I want to say, but it's difficult to put down. So yeah, I love that side where yourself and other people have just kind of brought it all together in such a great way, so
yeah, I love reflecting on people's visual work, so thank you for the opportunity, making it so accessible. And why don't you take the last couple minutes to share a bit about what you have going on, what you have coming up, and if you want to I think you're on all the socials, you're on Instagram.
On Instagram, some Instagram,
collaborate or connect with you.
Yeah, please do. Yes, I'm on Instagram, that's at Chris Horner Artist. I've got a Facebook page, that's Chris Horner Artist. Obviously, LinkedIn, Chris Horner Artist. And my website is www.chrishornerartist.com. And yeah, exhibition-wise, I've got 2 coming up. So I've got one actually opening on July the 7th, which isn't far away. And that's in Waterloo in London with the great art collective, the London Group. It's an outdoor sculpture installation exhibition. So if you can make it, it's at St. John's Church Gardens. And then the next one I've got, again, is with the London Group, and that's down in Dill in Kent at a place called Lidenhall Studios. So both for group exhibitions. And what's great is with the sculpture one, I'm putting in a really big tarpaulin piece, and the Lidenhall Studio piece, show, I'm currently working on a new piece at the moment, which is going to be made out of reclaimed bricks. So
watch nice. Watch this space. I just like to say, I see Saranjit Birdie, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, says, thanks very much for the insights into your process, Chris.
Oh, very welcome.
And if there are any other artists interested in collaborating like this, I hope that they will connect with me as well.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you very much to you, Joanne, and to everyone that's listened. Really appreciate it.
Great. Have a great rest of the day.
Cheers, Joanne. You too. Thanks very much. Cheers.
Thank you.